AI is a new hype, but is it good or is it bad? Will it make our life easier or harder? This is the Web Craftsman and welcome to my channel. This is my first video, so let me introduce myself. I'm Daniel and I'm a web developer for over a decade now. I love sharing my knowledge and I always wanted to create a channel where I'll be talking about the architecture, web APIs, frameworks and libraries. And this is it. But today, I'll be talking about something different, something that touched me personally, and I believe all of us should hear about it. Over the past decade, I've been interviewing quite a lot of people. Some were pretty good, others not so. Among those, there were obviously some cheaters, but most of them were just trying to Google up the answer, while just some of them were a bit more creative. My recent discovery, though, is a total game changer. In my current contract, my first assignment was to interview people for my own team. So I received a couple of CVs and started interviewing. First two candidates were pretty good and we ended up hiring them. But the next candidate was unusual. His answers were precise, descriptive, and he seemed to know everything about the technology. I came back to HR and said that, yeah, we definitely want this guy. The next day, I had two more interviews, and each of them were almost identical to the previous one. The answers were descriptive, full, like they knew everything about the technology, and there were just two differences between those two and the previous day candidate. So the previous candidate, when asked about the browser rendering steps after the browser builds DOM, CSS-OM, and render tree out of them, started answering about how the browser builds the DOM, CSS-OM, and render tree, which was not my question. But after that, he continued to the actual rendering steps, while those two candidates, they skipped the second part. So that kept me wondering, how on earth is it possible that three candidates have identical answering style with descriptive answers, a lot of content, a lot of knowledge, make mistake at the very same question, and the second difference was that those two had 2-3 second pause between my question and their answer, while the previous candidate had no noticeable pauses. That made me very suspicious. I started Googling and found out that there are ways of cheating using the AI. They record my questions, convert that to text and pass into the generative AI, and then get the answer they read. So I contacted HR and said that these guys are definitely frauds. And I believe the previous day one was one as well. So I asked for the second round with him. And this time, I prepared a bit better for the AI fraudsters. The next day, I had 3 interviews. First one was the second round with the previous candidate, and next 2 were new candidates. So with the second round, I started off with saying that it was a great interview before, and I would like to ask a few more questions. First one was about his previous experience. I mean, I did ask about that before, but this time I was looking close at how he answers them. And surprisingly, he didn't answer in past tense, like I did this, I did that, etc., but more generative, like it was this and this kind of project, the way of working there was that, and so on and so on. Like he was never there. The next question was referring to the previous call. So in previous call, I asked him about the view encapsulation in Angular, and he did mention that the third option is Shadow DOM. So this time I asked a bit more about how to use Shadow DOM. So he did answer that he used it. So I asked if he used that with Angular material, and he confirmed, which was weird because I don't know many people using that together, because that just doesn't work. Angular material has global CSS which styles their components, while Shadow DOM prevents the global styles. So I asked him if he had any issues using them together, and he said that there were no issues at all. I asked him, what if we want to override styles inside Shadow DOM? And after talking a lot of nonsense, I came to the conclusion that he actually talks about the box shadow instead of Shadow DOM. Next, I decided to ask some nonsense question. So I asked if he used JSX as a template for Angular, and he confirmed. So basically, he kept confirming everything. Whatever you said, he just knows it, even if it's nonsense. But okay, the call ended, and I contacted HR that we don't want him. He definitely either cheats or just lies. So, doesn't matter, we don't want him. The next candidate that day was another one like those previous two. So 2-3 seconds pause between question and the answer, same problem with the rendering steps question, and the same type of answering. But the final candidate that day was the best. So before I started chatting with this candidate, I took a little closer look into his CV. What brought my attention was that he claimed to be Slovak and that he studied in Poland. Okay, I decided to check it. So when the call started, I just hailed him in Slovak. Ahoj, ako se máš? And he said nothing. But okay, maybe the internet issue, maybe he didn't hear me. I asked him in English to just talk about himself. And he went on with talking about how awesome experience he has. But the next question I had for him was about his university. So I asked if he studied in Poland, and he confirmed. But there was one thing he didn't realize. He mentioned in CV that he started studying in April. That's not how it works in Poland. In Poland, you start in October. So I asked him, why did he start in April? He just said that, yes, he started in April. But okay, why? How did it happen? He said that he did that because he came from Slovakia. But he had no Slovakian university in CV. So I decided to check if he's actually Slovak. And I asked him if he was born in Slovakia or did he come to Slovakia. He said that he was born Slovak. That may be very suspicious because he looked Asian and had Asian accent. So I asked him if he could say something in Slovak. He disconnected. But okay, how to identify this kind of fraudsters? Well, you have to be aware of a few red flags. First of all, check their LinkedIn account. Each of those candidates had like 8, 9, 10 years of experience, but their LinkedIn account was like 1 year old at most. And this could potentially be true, but 5 candidates in a row, very unlikely. Second thing, check their working experience. I found that one of those candidates had experience in a company before this company was even created. Bad research. Now, third thing, maybe small detail, but one of those candidates had a stock photo as a profile photo. Not really good thing to do. But okay, let's assume that you somehow couldn't verify that because HR just sent you a CV. What to do if you actually get on the call with this kind of candidate? There are a couple of questions you could ask to verify that. First of all, asking about their experience. If they talk like it's not their experience, it's probably not their experience. Next, try forming a question which could include multiple terms, but only one of them would be your answer. So, like I did with rendering steps. First, I made a context saying that the browser builds the DOM, CSS object model, and render tree, and then asked the question, what are the browser steps after browser did this? Also, questions about Shadow DOM seem to be pretty good because not really many people use Shadow DOM, so they might have some problems answering that. Another thing, try asking questions that are pretty much nonsense, like I did with JSX inside Angular. If they keep confirming they used everything, it might be a good catch. And lastly, try checking if nationality they mentioned in the CV matches their accent. The candidates I interviewed, all of them had identical Asian accent, and some of them mentioned in the CV they were Estonians or Slovakians and so on. So keep that in mind. Just make sure you're not asking that on every interview. That might not be a nice question for a regular candidate. Now, why is it important to fight this kind of fraudsters? Let's analyze some facts. Let's assume that one of them gets hired in your project. For the whole month, they will most likely do nothing, as I don't believe they have enough experience. But it will take a month to realize they should be fired. But they wouldn't really break the contract. Because, come on, they're doing something, right? They're paid, they're just slow. So they couldn't be fired without paying for the notice period. So even though they would work for a month only, they would get paid for at least 2 months. Usually notice period is a month. So 2 months in a single company. Now, who forbids them to get hired in multiple companies? Let's say 5 companies. So a candidate like that gets hired in 5 companies and is paid for 2 months at each. So that's like 10 salaries. Now, let's assume a single salary would be an average of $5,000. So 10 months, $5,000, it's $50,000 for not doing anything but interviews. And I do believe it's not a single candidate. I do believe it's a network. I had 5 candidates like that times $50,000, $250,000. And that's money that could be paid to us, developers, doing the work. But there's one more thing. As they'll be doing nothing, guess who'll be doing their work in your project? Yep. If I only had a single candidate like that, I could potentially hire them, because I didn't know that way of cheating before. And I believe I'm not the only one. That's why please share this video, spread the word. Let's make life of those fraudsters as hard as possible, so none of us ends up with the project with them. And if you witnessed a fraudster like that, please leave a comment down below to help all of us identify them faster. Also, if you have another questions that could be asked to them to identify them, or if you have any other way of fighting these fraudsters, also please leave a comment down below. I would also appreciate if you hit the like button, and if you want to see more videos from me, this time technical ones, please hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon so you get notified whenever my videos are out. That was everything. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video.